Welcome to my movie recap channel. Sit back and relax. Let's watch this.
The film started with a man named James Harper, a member of the military special force. He had a wife named Gillian Harper and an 8-year-old son, and that he loved the two of them. Recently, James was healing from knee surgery after seriously injured when he fought in Afghanistan. A few days later, James was summoned by military officials and found that he was being removed from the service because they thought he was no longer a soldier. Not only does he not accept any separation pay because all the money has been used to pay for his medical treatment. Although it is difficult for James to leave the military, he can do nothing to keep his work. When James returns to his house, he informed to his wife that he lost his job and received no separation pay. He did not know what to do because he did not have enough money to support his family in the coming months, and they also had many bills to pay.
But Gillian tried to calm her down and made sure everything was going well because they could find a solution to their serious problem. That night, as James fixed the roof of the house, Gillian revealed that her best friend Mazen was dead when she killed his own life. Mazen was James's best friend in the military, and he was also removed from service just like James a few months ago. Gillian was worried and was afraid that James might do the same. But he immediately embraced it and made sure he would never leave his own family, especially at difficult times like this. The next day, James attended Mazen's funeral. A man named Mike approached him, coming out that Mike was the former superior's James at the special force, but he also got rid of work like James, but their relationship is still good, so Mike invites James to have dinner with his family. Besides, they have been in a long time after Mike moved to the new house. At night, James went to Mike's house and talked about their lives. After Mike and James watched a football game, while talking to their conversation, Mike shared that he was working at a private company with high salaries. To hear this, James asked for help to allow him to get into the company because at this time he still couldn't find a new job. In addition, he was also advised to pay bills and other home expenses immediately. The next day, Mike brought James to the boss of the organization he was working on, named Rusty Sutherland. Before taking James, Rusty told him that most of the missions of this work were a bit dangerous work and accept all the possible dangers it brings. From Rusty and James's conversation, that Rusty was also a member of the military and was removed like James.
But he decided to set up his own company. He also informed that his company had a permit and direct support from the government, so James should not worry about being arrested for conducting his official missions. When James joined him, Rusty gave him his first mission was to go to Berlin for a few weeks to get a man home. When James told Gillian that he had found a new job that had a big salary but needed him to go abroad for 2 weeks, and he was forced to agree. The next day, James went to Berlin on the plane and stayed at the hotel that Mike took him. After a few hours, a woman named Katya in James's room and identified one of Rusty's staff there and ordered James to spike with a biological scientist named In Lim, who is known to cooperate with terrorist organizations to develop biological weapons. In the evening, after preparing all the necessary equipment, James immediately left to perform his first mission. He recorded all of Salim's activities at home and in the laboratory where he was conducting research. After a few days of Salim's movements and gather all the necessary information, that James received a message from Kathy and returned her to the base. When it came to the headquarters, James met with Mike Kothaw and another colleague named Bobby. Mike explained that Salim makes a deadly biological weapons to sell in large terrorist organizations. Their mission is to kill Salim and steal all his research on biological weapons from the laboratory. However, the laboratory has a security system connected to the police station, so they need to be careful as a backup plan in case Berlin police surround them. They could run in the forest and in the river tunnels. That night, they had prepared all the necessary equipment and weapons before finally leaving their destination together. Arriving at the location secretly, James's team entered and one knocked the guards so they could enter the laboratory building. After reviewing the rooms, they finally found Salim and immediately threatened to provide all his research data, ordered by Mike Bobby to transfer all the data to their computer. While James was assigned to kill Salim, by hearing it, Salim continued to beg James not to kill him because he was just a scientist who was trying to save the lives of millions of people by his research.
He also asked James to secure a copy of his research data at the bank vault that his wife could only open, but James did not believe in Salim's words and immediately killed him with a chemical injection. After confirming that he was dead, James burned the laboratory and was released as if he had died in the accident. But when they were out of the laboratory, they were surrounded by 2 police vehicles, so the shootout between Mike's police and groups was unavoidable. Unfortunately, Kathy and Bobby died in the shootout and Mike had a bullet in the leg. Due to a worsening situation, James immediately took Mike and took them to the forest so they could hide in Tonel on the river. After a few minutes, Mike and James rested once in a safe place for James to treat Mike's leg wound. He also had to shed blood because Mike lost a lot of blood and his condition was critical.
When Mike recovered, they planned to return to the base immediately, but James's injury suddenly returned to his knees, so he could not stand up to Mike to go to the base and give Rusty research data as he was next after his recovery legs. To make their mission successful, Mike did nothing but leave James and go to Rusty to reach the data before leaving Mike, and Mike ordered James to go to a hotel called Sylvina and wait in the room until he came to pick up James. A few hours later, when his knees were healed, James went to the Sylvina Hotel. According to Mike's previous instruction in the room, James saw a passport given by Mike and a message saying he would come for 6 hours, but after a few hours of waiting, Mike didn't come and James felt something wrong, so he decided to leave the hotel after James called Rusty to ask Mike's whereabouts. So some police have started to think that he knows Mike did not return to submit the research data, so he assumed Mike died on the road. Rusty ordered James to tell his location so he could send some staff to pick him up, but then see the people who sent Rusty to feel strange James and decided not to go with them because he thought Rusty killed Mike. Rusty angrily ordered his staff to arrest and kill James after hearing some gunshot. Jam ran.
It was so wrong that he decided to leave the hotel after James called Rusty to ask Mike's whereabout research data, so he thought Mike died on the road. Rusty ordered James to tell his location so he could send some staff to pick him up, but after seeing the people Rusty sent, James felt strange and decided not to go with them because he thought Rusty killed Mike. Coming out that he was right when James went in the other direction, Rusty ordered his staff to arrest and kill James. After hearing a few gunshots, James ran to rescue himself from Rusty's staff. After a severe chase, he fled under the bridge and knocked down 2 of Rusty's staff.
Before the man died, James had time to ask who sent them and found that Rusty had sent them to kill him at the hotel after James sent a message to Rusty with a man's cell phone, so Rusty thought James was dead. After a long and tedious journey, James rested at the underground station while thinking of his next plan once he suddenly remembered what Salim said about the copy of the research data he had kept in the bank vault. The next day, James went to Salim's house and asked the scientist's wife to get a copy of the research data at vault. When Salim's wife rejected him, but after threatening he was hurting his son, he had done nothing but obey James's command. They went to retrieve the data from the bank vault and Salim's wife gave the data to James. After getting the data, James immediately reviewed what Salim's research was doing. After opening the data, he seemed surprised to find out that an ordinary scientist, just Salim the man, develops a vaccine to fight a deadly virus that is spreading in the world. He wants to distribute the vaccine for free to all in need, but some organizations plan to seize him with vaccine formulation to enrich their SAR. Selected after finding out this information, James decided to return to America with a passport that Mike had given earlier. When it came to America, James went to Mike's house to tell his wife that Mike had died in their mission, but unexpectedly alive Mike, so James thought he had conspired with Rusty to kill him. In the morning, that James secretly followed Mike to find out what his true intentions were, but Mike felt it, so he immediately ambushed the man who followed him all day. When he found out that James was Mike's surprise because he received the news of Rusty that James died in their past mission, which is why he did not pay it to the hotel as he promised so he could go home back to America. Not he deliberately betrayed James and meant that Rusty had just been playing with the two of them. Mike advised James not to go home first because when Rusty found out that his family's life was alive, when he heard it, James decided to kill Rusty because it was the only way to solve it all, because he was guilty. Mike, when he made James, he decided to help James in the raid on Rusty's place that night, pretended to meet Mike with Rusty while James entered the house with a back door. James and Mike began to shoot all of Rusty's staff and a severe shootout occurred. After knocking all of Rusty's staff, Mike and Rusty shot each other until they both fell. After James approached Rusty and shot him in the head without saying. After completing their plan, James rushed Mike to the hospital but died on the road because of the severity of his wounds. The next day, James burned Mike's body and his car before finally returning to his home after being with his family, intention of leaving James in America with his wife and son so they can start a new life, and here the movie ends.